G'day and welcome to Daily Insight Storytellings with me, Moon Willow. While I think about it, if you wouldn't mind, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. And if you enjoy this particular video, hit that thumbs up or thumbs down. It's entirely up to you. If you have any comments or questions, please put that in the comments box and I will endeavour to answer anything that I can. I always start with g'day, and I come by that honestly. I was born and brought up in Australia, and the reason why I'm bringing that up is that I noticed with the clocks changing last night that in trying to ring Australia it becomes very difficult. I get into a flow where I know the time difference fairly easily. But then at the beginning of October and March, Australia changes their clocks, and then at the end of March and October, we change ours over here in the United Kingdom. And I get a little bit discombobulated because I have to really then concentrate on figuring out what the time is. And the reason why I'm sort of talking about that is that I find that that's sort of an analogy for, or a metaphor, whichever one you want to use, for our lives in general. I think that we get into this nice flow, this nice habit that we know where we're going, we know how we're going to respond in situations. It's easy to walk through our lives. And that can go on for days. It may only go on for a couple of hours, and then it's like we trip up on something, that we hit something that we're not expecting. Whether that's a time change or whether that's that we're going somewhere that we expect certain people to be, or we're allowed to do certain things, and then overnight something has changed. And it feels very much like the world we're living at the moment, I know very much in the United Kingdom and other parts of the world, is that we begin to get our heads around how we can go out, how we can go shopping, how we can interact, how many people we can meet up with, which counties we can go across in this country. And then all of a sudden we go to do that and we hit resistance, we hit a block. And for me, that is sort of like how our thought processes work sometimes as well, is that we could actually be having a really lovely day, feeling really quite uplifted, feeling like we're connected to everything, connected with ourselves, connected with the universe, feel like everything's working quite nicely. And then all of a sudden we'll have a stray thought, or we'll hear something on the radio or the telly, or we'll overhear someone's conversation and there'll be a tone or a smell or just something we catch out of the corner of our eye that just really jolts us and sends us into, sometimes it's like a flashback, but sends us into this dark space or agitated space, or we can feel quite nauseous. And then we get caught in that because it's like, well, why has that happened? That's not happened for ages. I don't understand it. I've been in a really lovely mood. And the trick is, for me, is to notice that that's happened. That's fine. But it's remembering to step out of it quickly and look at it with curiosity. It's like, okay, what was it in that? Why has that come up again? What haven't I resolved? How do I need to work through that? Instead of getting caught back in that old emotional cycle. And it feels very cyclical and very going around and around in a spiral. And we can get stuck back in there, and that can be quite painful, very dark. And we can forget that actually for the previous 72 hours, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever, we've actually been quite flow. We've been flowing quite nicely. We're feeling really good. We're noticing the good things that are coming in, that people are smiling at us more, that a feather comes down in front of us, that the sunsets are really beautiful, the sun shines more often. And it just takes, and it's really scary that it just takes one little thing sometimes to lose all of that and go into sort of like a darker space within. And that's all right to have that happen, and not beat yourself up for going into that space, not compounding, ending up in that space, but actually take a deep breath, go, oh, okay, I'm back here. Why am I back here? What is this trying to say to me? What do I need to learn? But actually stepping back out and looking at it with perspective, with a fresh pair of eyes. So I hope that's making sense. I'm not entirely sure how that's going to fit for the rest of this particular storytelling. They tend to link through. We will see. So I'm going to grab a crystal out. Ooh. So we've got solidite. So that sort of goes in, so that's the throat chakra, and that goes into what we've been talking about recently, and that sort of links in with the story I've just been talking about. It's that negative thought process, it's the negative, the dark communications that we're having with ourselves, that that little imp on the shoulder that's sort of saying, well, you shouldn't have done that, you should have done it this way, you've done it this way before, what are we doing back here? That sort of real nitpicky, irritating, high-pitched, horrible internal voice, and it can choke us up, and we can get lost and caught to the point where we feel sick, we're not able to breathe. Sometimes anxiety attacks can affect us to that level where we're unable to breathe. We don't know how to get more oxygen. We don't know how to clear through it. So it has that real sticky, yucky bit in there, but it's sort of learning to come out of that and look at or observe the communication, seeing, as we've been talking about a lot recently, seeing where that communication is coming from and just sending it back to earth if it doesn't resonate, if it doesn't belong to you, because more often than not, these horrible words, this horrible speech to ourselves is not actually us. It's a way of protecting us from what we perceive people are going to be thinking about us already. But more often than not, if we have the courage to check with those people, it's furthest from their thoughts. So with that in mind, we will go into the cards. So if you focus your energy on that, while I breathe through it. That one wants to play. Actually, I'm going to pop that one back in. If it wants to play, it'll come out anyway. And split. I'm having fun with splitting these days. Okay. So we've got the key to destiny, going on a trip on the horse, and the heart. So I think for me what's coming through is that the key with this is to take that trip from the throat to the heart, to actually feel what resonates for us in our heart space, so that we can learn how to love ourselves unconditionally, and by that actually unconditionally loving other people around us, and having that key to the stories that we're telling ourselves, those stories that come up quite in the middle of the night, that can be quite dark and disconcerting, back into the wall, we've been here before, why are we here again, that sort of round and round. And to unlock that is to actually hold it away from us and have a look at it dispassionately, without any emotion, really. So we're not actually feeding into those old stories, that we can actually look at it more clearly and find the key, find where it came from in the first place, so that we can actually, on some of them, lock them away. Well, actually, I never agree. I don't like the concept of locking things away, because I think that that has really negative connotations in the long run. And I think that's where, for me personally, I think that's where disease comes from. That if we hold this darkness in ourselves, that we lock it away, that it can actually fester and become quite dark. So actually we need to unlock it and actually hold it open and look at it with loving kindness and forgiveness. And if it doesn't belong to us, or if it's something that no longer serves us, that actually we, with consciousness, put it into earth and transmute that. So it is that journey, and this is about the journey. And sometimes we're waiting for other people to do it. Sometimes this card is seen like the knight in shining armor, and where there's a part of us as a soul collective in the stories that we tell everybody across the world, and it comes very much from the old fairy tales, that actually we need rescuing from somebody else, we need rescuing by somebody else. And it's that we're constantly putting ourselves out there, we're constantly changing ourselves to actually be loved, to be recognized, to be acknowledged that we're okay. But it's always at a condition. There's always conditions. We put those conditions on ourselves, irrespective of whether the other has that or not. We waiting for that person to sort of suddenly pull that rug from underneath us and say, no, we're not good enough. What do you mean? I've never said that. And if we rely on other people to rescue us, then we're always going to have that lock away, and we're expecting someone else to bring the key. And we have the power within us to actually rescue ourselves, that we can actually go in and we can be supported by other people. Obviously, I'm not suggesting that we do any of this by ourselves, but the true healing is from out within and is from ourselves, and we can be guided and supported by other people who may be able to shine the light so that we actually see where the locks are and we can actually find the keys. But it is really important, in my opinion, is that we're actually doing the work ourselves. And it's a lot better. I put up shelves years ago and I was really unclear as to how to do it. But that sense of satisfaction afterwards in actually doing it, yeah, they were slightly wonky, it doesn't matter. It's knowing that I can do that for myself, and it's knowing you can do this, that you can rescue yourself. And it's by going in and speaking more kindly to ourselves. It is that communication, the throat chakra with the solidite. It's actually watching how we speak to ourselves, how we speak to our hearts. Are we actually saying that we're not good enough, that we're not deserving, that if anyone saw what was within us, that they would be horrified because it's really dark in there? It's noticing the language we're using on ourselves. And again, it's taking that space to actually hold and have a look at where it comes from, so that that can be transmuted. And that we can actually learn to love ourselves completely and unconditionally. That at those times when we made decisions, they were the right decisions with the information we had at that time. And everything is in constant flow, everything is moving. But it's that remembrance that if we do trip up, that's okay. That it is a journey. We're not there at the end. It's a journey, and it is a journey of self-discovery. It's a journey about learning how to love ourselves. It's a journey of knowing that we are magical, that we have huge connections with Source, and that we are wonderful. But it's actually learning how we can speak that into being, and how we can actually speak more nurturing and wonderfully to ourselves on a regular basis. Because we can start to do that externally, but then we'll notice that the internal thought processes are just as horrific, really, and they come out more at night. So it's at those times when we actually hold our love and compassion for who we are, and that we are doing the best we can in the world at any given point in time. So I hope that's making sense to people out there. And I'm just going to end with a vibrational sound that I have no clue where it comes from. I just know that there seems to be a vibrational energy around that I find becomes released when I use different tones. For centuries, people have used chants and various sounds to actually shift things through. So I think that's where that's coming from. So, thank you so much for joining me again today. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend or wherever you are in the world at the time of watching this. Thank you. Love you all.